There comes a moment in a woman's life when she realizes everyone she depended on is gone. Not all at once, not loudly, but quietly. One by one. Until one day, the phone stops ringing and the room feels heavier than before. She didn't imagine her life turning out this way. She believed faith would mean support, that love would stay, that someone would always be there to stand beside her. But life had other plans, and now she's sitting with questions she never wanted to ask. She prays, but not with confidence. Just a whisper. Just enough strength to say, "God, I don't understand this." And in that moment, fear mixes with something unexpected, peace. Because when a woman has no one left to lean on, no one left to call, she discovers a truth that changes everything. She was never truly alone. God was there the whole time, waiting for the moment when he would be the only one left. When everyone left, the house felt too quiet. Every corner seemed to echo with absence. She had tried to stay busy, cleaning, organizing, even reading old letters, but nothing could fill the hollowness that had settled inside her heart. She thought maybe she had done something wrong, that her words or choices had driven people away, but no clear answer ever came. At night, when the world slept, the weight of loneliness became almost unbearable. The silence pressed in from all sides, reminding her that she had no one to call, no one to reach for, no one waiting to hear her voice. For a while, she tried pretending she was fine, keeping her face calm, smiling when necessary, telling herself that strength meant carrying the burden alone. But the truth is, pretending doesn't remove the ache. And one evening, exhausted from trying to appear strong, she fell to her knees, not for show, not for anyone to see, but simply to speak honestly to God. "I'm tired," she whispered. "I'm scared. I don't know how to do this alone." And in that quiet, when the tears had fallen and the heart was open, she felt a subtle warmth, a gentle presence that reminded her she was not abandoned. God was there, closer than she had ever realized. As the days passed, something began to shift inside her. The loneliness that once felt like a cage started to feel like space to think, to breathe, to be honest with herself and with God. She began to notice small things she had overlooked before. The way sunlight filtered through the blinds in the morning, the soft hum of life outside her window, the gentle rhythm of her own heartbeat. In these quiet moments, she realized that God's presence had been constant, even when she couldn't see it. She started speaking to God differently now. Not with rehearsed words or prayers she thought he wanted to hear, but with raw honesty. She told him about her fears, her regrets, her longing for connection, and even her anger at how things had turned out. And for the first time, she felt heard, not because someone answered her prayers immediately, but because God was simply listening. Without anyone else around, she discovered the freedom to surrender fully. She no longer tried to control everything or force relationships to stay alive. She realized that some losses were not punishments but invitations, to trust, to grow, to lean into the one who never leaves. The quiet became sacred, a sanctuary where her heart could finally rest. By letting go of the need for constant companionship, she began to feel a new kind of strength, not from the world, not from people, but from God. And slowly, the fear of being alone melted into peace, a peace deeper than she had ever known. She realized that being alone with God was not emptiness, it was fullness, a connection that nothing else could replace. Weeks passed, and her days began to take on a new rhythm. Mornings were no longer rushed or filled with the weight of expectation. She found herself lingering over the simple act of drinking her coffee, listening to birds outside, or feeling the warmth of sunlight on her skin. The emptiness she had once feared became a canvas where God painted moments of quiet grace. She remembered the times she had leaned on friends, expecting them to carry her burdens, and realized that leaning too much on others had kept her from leaning fully on God. The very loneliness she had dreaded was now teaching her to trust Him more deeply. It was as if each moment of isolation was a gentle hand guiding her closer to the heart of her faith. At first, there were still moments of doubt. Old fears and insecurities would creep in, whispering that she was forgotten or unworthy. But now she had learned a new response. Instead of running from the pain or trying to numb it, she turned toward God with it. She brought every worry, every tear, every longing into His presence, and in return, she felt a quiet reassurance, a gentle whisper in her heart that said, "I am here. You are not alone." Evenings, once heavy with the weight of absence, became moments of reflection and gratitude. She would sit by the window, watch the sun dip below the horizon, and speak to God about the small victories of her day. She realized that her life was not defined by the people who had left but by the presence of the one who never would. In learning to be fully present with God, she discovered something profound. Being alone was not a punishment, but a gift, a chance to experience love, guidance, and peace in a way the world could never give. The days turned into weeks, and she began to notice a subtle transformation within herself. Where once there had been anxiety and longing, there was now a quiet confidence rooted not in people, but in God. She no longer measured her worth by who stayed and who left, but by the presence of the one who never abandons. She started seeing God's fingerprints in everyday moments. The way the wind brushed against the trees, the soft songs of birds in the morning, the way light spilled across her table when she wrote her prayers. Each detail became a reminder that God's care was constant, even in what appeared to be emptiness. Loneliness had taught her patience. She learned to wait for God's timing instead of rushing life or forcing solutions. She discovered joy in the small, simple moments: a warm cup of tea, a deep breath, a quiet walk through nature. These moments, once overlooked, became sacred. They were reminders that life could be full even without anyone else around. She also realized that her prayers had changed. They were no longer lists of demands or pleas for help. Instead, they were conversations, honest, open, and tender. She spoke of her fears, her hopes, and her dreams. And in those conversations, she felt an intimacy she had never experienced before, a closeness that filled the gaps left by the absence of others. Through this journey, she began to understand a profound truth: being alone with God was not a punishment or a void to endure. It was a gift, a chance to be deeply known, deeply loved, and deeply at peace. What had once felt like loss had become her path to spiritual intimacy and inner strength. As time went on, she noticed a change not just in her heart, but in her perspective on life. The emptiness that had once frightened her now felt like a quiet companion, a space where God could speak, where she could listen, and where her soul could grow. She no longer feared being alone because she had discovered a presence that never left, a love that never wavered. She began to see her own strength in a new light. Strength was not in holding everything together for the sake of others. Strength was in surrendering, in trusting God fully, in allowing Himself to carry what she could not. And with this realization came peace, a calm that no external circumstance could shake. Evenings became her moments of gratitude. She would sit by the window, watch the sky shift from gold to indigo, and speak to God about her day. About her fears, her joys, her small victories. She realized that the value of life was not in the people who stayed, but in the depth of her connection with the one who remained. Her loneliness had been transformed into intimacy. Her silence had become prayer. Her emptiness had become fullness. And in that transformation, she understood something profound. When the world turns away, God turns closer. When no one else is there, He is still holding her hand, guiding her steps, whispering peace into her heart. And now, she could say with gentle certainty, being alone with God is not being alone at all. It is being fully known, fully loved, and fully cared for. So, if you find yourself with no one but Him today, do not despair. Lean in. Pray. Listen. Let the quiet teach you that His presence is enough, and that in Him, you will never truly be alone. If this story touched your heart, take a moment today to pause and speak to God. Share this video with someone who needs to be reminded that they are never truly alone. And subscribe to our channel for more stories that inspire faith, hope, and peace in every season of life.